Kabayan Bloc says it's ready to file a new impeachment complaint against the Vice President. And joining us tonight to talk about this is ACT Teachers Party List Representative Congressman Antonio Tinio. Good evening, sir. Thanks for joining us on The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Regina, Sean, and Pauline. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. Well, the logical first place to start is to ask you for your reaction to the Supreme Court decision yesterday denying with finality the VP Sara Duterte's impeachment and calling it unconstitutional. I mean, I can imagine you're hugely disappointed by that decision, but let's try to get into the specifics here. What about the ruling were you most upset by?
Of course, disappointed, dismayed, even angry with the decision. Okay, why? The Senate President said impeachment is now an impossible dream. My take on that is impeachment will be impossible if the Supreme Court keeps intervening in impeachment and keeps changing the rules. So this is what has happened here, is that even from decision to decision, they changed the rules among themselves. So the original decision that barred the impeachment trial said, for example, that supposedly on February 5, the one-year bar would lapse, because they cited a particular reason their inaction of Congress is what triggers the one-year bar. But now in the motion for reconsideration, they changed their interpretation of rules, or they made up another rule and says, no, actually, session day means calendar days. Therefore, the reckoning date will be different. And now, as you just mentioned in your report, January 14 will be the time when the one-year bar lapses. So this is ridiculous. This is absurd that the Supreme Court comes in and changes the rules, arbitrarily, seemingly, and it should be emphasized how absurd the situation is, that supposedly that original decision was a unanimous decision. Everyone agreed on it. And the reaction to that decision was almost universally that the Supreme Court overreached, went beyond the Constitution by requiring so many additional processes for the second mode, which is supposed to be a fast-track mode, practically requiring another set of hearings before the articles of impeachment could be fast-tracked. So in this motion for the justices unanimously agreed on that, and yet in this motion for reconsideration, they basically backed off from that and said, no, actually, we don't need sui generis. This impeachment is sui generis, so that's no longer required. But yet they were still able to find a new reason, or come up with a new reason, to declare the impeachment trial unconstitutional. In this case, I was listening to the report. One attorney was saying, wala naman daw dinagdag sa Konstitusyon ang Supreme Court with this decision. I beg to differ, they did. And this has to do with initiation of a complaint. According to this new ruling, an impeachment proceeding is initiated, de facto initiated, when the Speaker fails to act on an impeachment complaint in a timely manner, when the Speaker fails to include the complaint in the order of business within 10 session days, understood as calendar days. So that is something new. That initiation, the Constitution says no impeachment proceeding shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a period of 1 year. Initiation is an act of Congress. No? So it's specifically it's referral to the Justice Committee of impeachment complaints. No? And yet, here, the Supreme Court in this decision is imposing a new rule and saying, well, it's also initiated if the Speaker fails to act in a timely manner, which is simply absurd. So the bottom line here is that the Supreme Court backed off from its earlier unacceptable decision, but yet found another way, and in another unacceptable and illogical ruling, found another way to scuttle the impeachment trial against the Vice President.
Well, one of your colleagues, Congressman Terry Redon, actually said in a tweet, quite lengthy tweet, but essentially he said that this is actually more constitutionally workable. He said the most restrictive due process requirements in the first ruling were done without in this second ruling, the final one. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with at least that part of it?
I agree with that. No, the Supreme Court, in that, as I said, unanimously imposed that ruling that there should be due process in the fast track mode. It seems they themselves realize this is totally untenable and beyond what the text of the Constitution requires of the fast track mode. So they backed off from that. So they supposedly they say if it's a unanimous decision, a reconsideration is almost impossible. But in this case, there was a unanimous decision and now a unanimous reversal. So I'm just highlighting the absurdity of what has happened here. And however, as I said, this Supreme Court has found a new way to go beyond the Constitution by practically redefining initiation of an impeachment complaint. So now it's no longer just a positive action of the plenary, either by referral of complaints to the Justice Committee or by the fast track mode, one endorsement by 1/3 of members. Now it's just if the Speaker fails to include complaint in the order of business within 10 session days, which, as I said again, is absurd.
Well, Congressman, we already heard Senate President Tito Soto floating the idea of meeting with their counterparts, the members of the House of Representatives, and discuss the possibility of charter change and amending these rules on when it comes to the impeachment process. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, that's where I disagree with the Senate President insofar as he's now using this action of the Supreme Court to justify charter change. In the past or historically, Senator Toto, when he was Senator Tito, when he was Senate President, was a staunch critic of charter change, and in fact, his leadership in the Senate was one of the big reasons why Chacha always died in the Senate. So this signals a big change for him personally. Now he's saying, well, because of all this, we should do Chacha. And in that statement, he mentioned for amendment of economic proposal. So medyo, I think, sinasakyan or sinasakyan yung nangyaring ganito para itulak naman yung agenda ng charter change.
Yeah. Okay,
which I do not agree with.
Okay, Congressman. So to summarize, you have two issues with the decision, which is that number one, they are changing the rules of impeachment. And number two, the fact that you take issue with the fact that it was a unanimous decision. There were no dissenting opinions. But let me go on the other side of it for a second and point out that they actually made it clear they're not ruling on the merits of the case. So these are merely procedural, guidelines that they've laid down. Doesn't that count for something?
Well, consolation prize. Okay, there was already supposed to be a trial, no? But because of that unanimous decision of the Supreme Court, which they have practically retreated from now with this new decision, the effect has been to scuttle that trial and therefore to deny the people their right to this process of exacting accountability from the Vice President. No? So, okay, easy for, who can take, should we take comfort in the fact that they said, well, pwede pa rin naman kayo mag-file uli eh. Basically, that's what they're saying.
Well,
So, hindi, that's not enough.
okay. Well, as I heard Congresswoman Jervel Luistro in an interview this morning, she said it's all water under the bridge. So now let's move on because next week, Monday, they will start deliberations on the impeachment complaints filed against President BBM. And I think you're one of the three Makabayan Bloc congressmen
Endorses.
who will be giving a privileged speech. What are your expectations for Monday, Congressman?
Well, we are preparing for the Committee on Justice hearing, and we expect that our complaint will be found sufficient in form, substance, and that it will proceed to the hearing proper, which is determination of sufficient grounds for probable cause. In other words, to the meat, the substance of the complaint itself. Our complaint is grounded on the truth, which is that the president had and has direct knowledge of the unprecedented, widespread, and systemic and centralized plunder of public funds through the flood control scam. He knew about it, he directly participated in it, and he directly benefited from it. So we are fully confident in that, and so we expect that this impeachment, the hearing of the Committee on Justice will proceed on to the end and not be prematurely ended in the early stages.
I also wanted to clarify something, Congressman, because we had Attorney Ernesto Francisco the other night, and he believes that the second impeachment complaint is already barred because the first one was allegedly parang nauna po na i-refer sa Justice Committee. Maybe you'd like to clarify that, Congressman, because that would mean that your impeachment complaint is already under the rule, the one-year bar rule.
Yeah. Well, again, we're venturing into absurd territory again here, where it's physically impossible to read two titles at the same time. Meron talagang mauuna. So it is understood as a legal fiction that the two complaints were simultaneously referred in one act, by the House, the plenary. So that should no longer be an issue, but the fact that it is being raised as an issue actually just means that there are people who are interested in blocking this impeachment proceeding. So for what reason, bakit ayaw nilang magkaroon ng impeachment proceeding against President Marcos, sila na magpaliwanag nun.
Okay, to be fair, I think he was just really purely also debating the procedural aspect and not the merits of the case, Congressman. But Again,
I have also heard people say that the first complaint was
Supposed
lacking in substance, supposedly. Supposedly. But we won't know for sure, of course, until you guys debate it. But you know what's
Well,
also...
this is precisely the problem with the impeachment here. Everything is procedural, and then nothing. No one gets impeached.
Yeah, yeah. So also what's coming up next week, apart from Monday when you convene the Justice Committee, is February 6th is also next week, of course. And let me ask you straight, is there a plan to file another impeachment complaint against the Vice President?
Yes, there is. The complainants whom we will endorse, whose complaint we will endorse, they're ready, and we'll file shortly.
And what is the temperature in the lower house right now, and temperature, appetite, whatever you want to call it, in terms of seeing this through and actually getting it and transmitted to the Senate?
You mean
In short, how
the
much
complaint
support
against
do
the
you...
Vice President?
Correct. How much support do you think you will get?
We expect that since the composition of the current Congress is not that different from the previous one, that those who endorsed, or at least a majority of those who endorsed the complaint in the 19th Congress should also endorse this complaint. No? So, well, maybe that's a challenge to them. No? Wala namang pinag-iba pa yung complaint, nananatili yung mga batayan. You endorsed before, you should endorse again this time around.
Except, of course, some may already be thinking about their 2028 prospects. And some naman, we hear, are a little bit more afraid now because of what they've seen the Supreme Court do. Yeah. But
Well,
you haven't gone
they
around to
will
canvass the
have to-
numbers, for instance.
We've been, of course we have. So, the impeachment is a political process, it's a public process. So, in the end, lahat ng mga actors dito, huhusgahan ng publiko.
a quick question, Congressman. Is there any talk amongst you guys in the lower house to amend the House rules? Because I think some House rules might have to be amended in order to comply with the final ruling of the Supreme Court.
I think tama yung sinasabi, no, that impeachment is a constitutional mandate of Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, and they have the prerogative to make their own rules. No? I think may problema kapag after every challenge, the Supreme Court rules, and then you have to change the rules again. No? So, I am not part of the committee that is deliberating on the new rules of the House. Right now, the House is working on, has merely adopted the rules from the previous Congress. But, the House should take a stand that it is a co-equal branch and it makes its own rules, including on impeachment.
Okay.
Fair enough. We'll leave that there, but thank you so much for talking to us tonight. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Congressman Antonio Tinio.